Skal bare introdusere. Da får vi en video til. Og det er Florencia Aguirre fra EAT og Manuela Aguirre, som er designer i Designit og jobber på AHO, som skal presentere Youth Driving Multi-Stakeholder Policy Innovation from Physical to Digital Co-Creation. Vær så god.
Hello everyone, my name is Manuela Aguirre. I'm from Designit and AHO, and together with Florencia from the EAT Foundation, we will present a project about youth driving multi-stakeholder policy innovation. This is a collaboration between Designit and the EAT Foundation. Designit is a global strategic design firm with offices all over the world and with over 500 employees. We do service design, design research, brand strategy, digital experiences in public and private sectors. And in this occasion, we partnered with the EAT Foundation, and Florencia will tell you more.
Hi everyone, my name is Florencia. I'm from the EAT Foundation. EAT is a non-profit NGO. Slide please. Which goal is to transform the food system into one that is fair, healthy, and sustainable for all. We do this by connecting scientists, policymakers, and business leaders to close knowledge gaps and take science-based actions. Next. Co-CREATE is a research consortium coordinated by the Norwegian Institute of Public Health, where EAT is part of it together with 14 other organizations across 10 different countries. The most active ones are in Europe, being the UK, the Netherlands, Portugal, Poland, and Norway. And Co-CREATE is a 5-year project with a 9.5 million fund and is part of the EU Horizon 2020 program. In 2009, EAT engaged with Designit as a partner to be part of this Co-CREATE project. The aim of Co-CREATE is to tackle obesity among youth through policies that are co-created by youth. And we asked 2 of our project members, why are youth so important to include in policymaking today? The first one being Overvekt, the innovation manager from the EAT Foundation.
When asking about why youth are not involved more in policymaking, I think the explanation that stands out most clearly is that they're not taken seriously. Youth are considered subjects of change, not agents of change.
Then we have Sofia Mendes, a youth facilitator and part of the Center for Studies and Research in Social Dynamics and Health from Portugal.
The wrong impression that youth are not interested in actually being part of the policy process. And second, there is still a lack of proactivity and openness by decision makers to hear youth, maybe because they think they don't have enough knowledge or background to provide relevant inputs and perspectives to the issues that are being addressed.
So first, we understand that youth are considered subjects of change, not agents of change. And then policymakers assume that maybe youth are not interested in participating in these processes.
When asking about why youth are not...
So just to give you an overview of how the Co-CREATE is organized over the 5 years, there's 10 different work packages. They are all, of course, focusing on different things. But essentially, the main goal is to form youth alliances in the 5 European countries involved and support them with country-specific policy assessments, country-specific obesity rates and analysis, so they can then engage in systems mapping and identify the upstream factors that affect childhood and youth obesity. They also engage in participatory action research, and through this insight process, they co-create and prototype policy ideas. After they've created their policy ideas, they engage policymakers and business leaders to co-create with them and build upon their ideas. And then they evaluate the co-created policy interventions. And in this context, Designit and EAT have been working in Work Package 6, which is a model of how to engage policymakers and business leaders to build upon the policy ideas that have been co-created by youth. So the specific task was to design a model for youth to engage multiple stakeholders to co-create and build upon youth-led policy ideas. Okay, so at this point, when we had the brief, we felt like this project was actually an impossible task because we were not youth, at least anymore. And we could actually learn from very few youth that were located in Norway. And this is because we had to design the dialogue model before the youth alliances were formed. So we couldn't actually do research and test with our actual user group. So we found that youth alliances or youth organizations and youth representatives in Norway that surfaced with policymaking issues and policymakers and business leaders were the closest to the user group that we would be having later on. So we started by doing research. So I'm going to walk you through some of our findings, but actually I will frame them as the design principles that guided the project forward. Then we will look at the physical co-creation model that we did. There were 2 iterations of this. And then when COVID hit, we had to move digitally, and we adapted the tool to become a digital co-creation model. So the first design principle, it's not only policymakers who need to take youth seriously, but also parents, teachers, and doctors. Through our conversations with many youth in Norway, many of them were undermined by their parents, their teachers at school, not believing them, and also people who were involved in policy processes felt like it was just to tick the minority box. The second principle is that there's no such thing as the youth perspectives. We need to find ways to explore their pluriverse. So one of the youth leaders in Norway said that politicians benefits from seeing us argue. They have an idea of us being one group, but I enjoy showing adults that we represent multiple voices. The third design principle is that we need to give them an equal voice and seat at the table. Many youth that were invited to political processes felt like they were treated like children. They were giving the loft with bean bags, they ordered pizza and soda for them, but they never actually had to get conversations with adults. And others felt like it was just a symbolic act, like they were asked to sit at the front of the room so they could be in the pictures, but they were never given the chance to speak. The fourth design principle is that do not be surprised by their abilities. In a lot of conversations, people felt like adults were condescending or they were patronizing them when they were sounding smart or they came prepared to a meeting, which they felt it was just a natural thing to do, and you wouldn't compliment an adult for that. The fifth design principle is to pay attention to their questions, especially when subtle assumptions are challenged. This came from a public servant. He reflected that youth are eminent observers and they still ask questions that we adults have stopped asking. And finally, the sixth design principle is to plan for less talking and more doing. The more concrete, the better. Many youth feel like, are we going to sit once more to talk about this? We need to do. We often agree on the end goal, but never on how to get there. So all of this has started informing the physical co-creation model that we would use for youth to present their policy ideas and engage a variety of stakeholders. We were very aware of the power dynamics involved in this process, so we really wanted everyone to have an equal voice and seat at the table, aiming for a 50-50 ratio between youth and adults. Also, we wanted to use a safe and playful way to encourage disagreements. So for this, we used actually like a physical, tangible material lever that you would rate the policy idea with and really encourage diversity because that will just strengthen the idea presented. Third, the dialogues were moderated by the youth, but we also wanted to reduce the pressure on a single individual by making all tasks and instructions accessible to everyone that was sitting at the table. And finally, we wanted to converge the dialogue towards collective action and the doing sphere. So we finalized by with concrete offers that people could offer to each other, which led to powerful collaborations. The big problem with this model is that it was very hard to scale. Both we needed to physically get it to all the youth alliances located in the 5 European countries, but also this model needed to be translated to all the country-specific languages. Therefore, we adapted the model into a format that could be easily printed with A4 sheets and A3 sheets, and also available material that you could just go to your local print shop and get support helping. Also just simplified all the instructions so they could be more easily translated.
Okay, so we are located more or less in February. We're almost done with our physical tool and COVID-19 hit. And as most of us, we were also new with the digital kind of video conference world. And our first gut reaction was to mirror the physical co-creation model into a digital format. Big mistake. So we are going to present some of our learnings. We had like a 6-week period where we iterated and made about 5 or 6 different prototypes. So we did learn a lot there. So the first learning is don't default into Miro. We really wanted to bring this interactive richness and the tangibility of the physical model into the digital platform. So we immediately thought, okay, Miro is something that we're using and it's really interactive. Luckily, we created a first prototype. We tested it as fast as possible and we realized it was a disaster. We understood after a few prototypes that we need to use platforms that are familiar to people, especially taking into account the diversity of stakeholders that needed to use it. So not only youth, but policymakers, business representatives, people from municipalities. So it needed to be simple and very familiar to their day-to-day tasks also. So our second learning was use only one platform. So we tried to go to the opposite direction. So use something that was extremely familiar with participants. So we tried to mimic Excel sheets in Google Slides, which we thought it's straightforward. We can just write there. But then we were using Zoom to answer communication and like to see the other participants. And then we were using Google Slides in parallel. So the moderator and participants had to toggle between one platform and the other. And it just became very, it just broke off the flow of the conversation. And the moderator just struggled to follow participants. So our second learning is try to go simpler again, and the less, as rule of thumb, the less platforms you need to use, the better it will be for the conversation and also for the participants. And then the third learning is have a moderator and a tech support. So as we said, we were quite new to this kind of having conversations in the digital space. and we try to give the moderator also a role of helping participants and just helping in every detail, and we realized that we needed another person. So having a tech support, someone that actually can be in charge of helping participants if they have a bad internet connection or if they cannot use some functionalities of Zoom, it's really helpful, and the moderator can really focus on the most important part of the experience, which is the actual conversation. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through the final prototype, which is the digital co-creation tool. And for this prototype, we brought all of the learnings from the previous prototypes, the physical ones and also the digital ones. So it was moderated by youth. We also ensured this 50-50 participation, but we only kind of adapted the platform and also a bit of the activities. This tool was used only in Zoom, and we created a common background, or this canvas where all the activities took place, and participants used the annotation tool in each of the different activities to give their input into the different questions that were being asked or the different discussion topics. And at the end of the dialogue, we had a full canvas with all of the participants' answers and reflections that you will see at the end of this short demo. So the first activity consisted of the moderator presenting the policy idea to the different participants and why he cared about it. And the second one, participants were asked to reflect upon what did they care the most about this policy idea. So as you can see in the video, participants were asked to write inside their figures. And as the activities progressed, each of the different parts of the canvas were also filled up as they spoke and discussed. After they shared what they cared about and also voted upon how did they care about related to the policy idea that was brought by the moderator, they were asked to identify obstacles and opportunities regarding this policy idea. So what worked and what didn't. And then they were also asked to vote within the ones that they felt was most relevant or representative. After they did this, they were asked to write and also discuss what were possible improvements that could be done to this policy idea. So based in the obstacle and opportunity that was voted the most, participants came up with new ideas or proposals on how to make it better. After this was step number 5, which consisted of, after the discussions and the reflections, participants wrote what they thought was the common vision for this dialogue. So trying to bring all of the different perspectives, not into a consensus, but into something that unite them all to find a bit of common ground. Then they voted again, and what is not portrayed in this particular image that was another iteration from this dialogue was that we re-included the actions at the end of the dialogue. So stakeholders and youth exchange tangible or kind of relevant actions that they could take after the dialogue together. So from a meeting to advocacy or networking, whatever they thought was useful and relevant. And this is the final snapshot of the dialogue that we have. So starting with an empty canvas and finishing with all of these thoughts and reflections from the different participants. And here we can see how 3 different countries have used it. So here we have examples from Poland and Portugal. And one of the great things of this tool that was a bit difficult before was it's so easy to translate, because it's just a Google form where the moderator can write its own notes. And everything is editable. So that really, we never thought that going digital would actually make it much easier to use and much more user-friendly for everyone.
As Florencia was saying, it's been a tool that's been easy to scale, which was one of the big barriers at the beginning. It's been used by many people from different countries in Europe. And one of the nice things also of going digital is that before we were having the dialogue forums within a country. And then we could start connecting youth alliances from different countries. And for youth to see that their ideas also resonated with others in another part of Europe in a very different context was super motivating. And now we will hear again from Sofia from Portugal.
The digital dialogue forums are an innovative and actual funny way to discuss policy ideas. They ensure a balanced and equal participation, which makes youth feel very comfortable in sharing their ideas and exploring their ideas with relevant stakeholders. They comprehend a mutual commitment between stakeholders and youth, which results in a very productive discussion and in promising future actions, making it a very meaningful experience.
And now we'll hear again from Samantha Nasrallah. She's the co-create project lead from EAT.
Particularly in these digital times during coronavirus, this tool has been helpful in connecting people throughout Europe, throughout the globe, and really providing a key platform to engage youth in the policymaking process.
So just to recap, this tool has provided a mutual commitment between youth and relevant stakeholders, which makes it a meaningful engagement, which actually leads to action, not just talking. And especially in these COVID times, it's enabled a global platform to engage youth.
An actual funny way.
And just to recap, digital co-creation, as we reflect upon the project, has a lot of advantages. For example, going digital also meant going global, but you lose the subtle social cues and body language that you get when you have physical presence. However, it's easier to stay connected with follow up with each other when you've already created kind of a communication channel with each other. But again, we need to be even more safe in the cyberspace field, especially when bringing together youth and adults. And this is, I think, one of the most important ones that in this whole project, we've talked a lot about power dynamics, of course. And in the digital realm, the traditional adult-youth power dynamics are actually inverted because of the digital tech competencies and the comfortableness in that space that youth bring. However, stable digital connection is unfortunately still limited to a privileged few. So even though we're kind of equalizing the power dynamic equation, and of course, the digital possibilities allows us for a much broader reach. It's still limited to good connectivity. So we really want to thank everyone involved in this project, from the co-create consortium, Designit, all of the participants, EAT Foundation, press, and other friends who have helped out.
And this is the final snapshot, which we finished the dialogues. So we try to finish in an experiential way, so keeping the anonymity of all participants, but still having something to remember and feel that you were part of. So we show how we started this dialogue and the final common vision that we all ended up with. And also I want to mention that we're still doing dialogue forums. They will be going on to the following year also. And until now, there has been 8 dialogue forums in Portugal, Netherlands, and in Poland. where youth have organized them and moderated themselves, engaging different stakeholders from policymakers, business representatives, health experts, people from municipalities. So it's really encouraging to see how this is being used, and we're very eager to see how it will be used in the future as well. So if you want to follow up or follow the progress of this initiative, here is the Twitter account and the Instagram account, EU co-create, in both ways. So yes, if you want to reach out, here are emails. And thank you so much, CCSDI, for the invitation to this conference.